I want to talk a second about a story about Steven Spielberg and how he actually ended up becoming an acclaimed director. And when he started off like anyone else in terms of having the dream. And one thing is, when you're looking at these different people's stories, what you see is they stuck to it no matter what. What you see is that they decided to become the key. They decided to become the master of their fate. They decided that they wanted to take themselves to the next level, and they knew that there was something that they had to do. So Steven Spielberg went on a tour, Universal Studios, and what he did was he stayed back there. He stayed on the tour a long period of time. He ended up meeting the guards, and then he came back like daily, and to the point where the guards thought he was a student, right? And he kept going back and forth until he started getting familiar with some of the writers, the directors and producers and other people around the studio. And he was asking them, like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And one thing that I really admire in his story, and what you see amongst a lot of stories where people are wanting to break in and they're wanting to get a chance, is that they keep asking. They keep asking the same question over and over again. Let me do this, let me do this, let me do this. And they do it with unwavering faith. And they don't stop asking, and they're persistent. And that's one quality, is that you have to be persistent. If it's truly a dream and a goal that you have to be persistent. You have to keep on the narrow and the straight path that you have for yourself. Because the thing is, people are going to tell you no. People are going to tell you no, but did you tell yourself no? Did you accept their answer as no for you? Are you allowing other people to determine the success that's meant for you? Or are you allowing yourself to become the writer of your own destiny and to create your player to go to the next level? What is it that you want for yourself? What is it that you're allowing? What is it that you're accepting? What is it that you're rejecting to get yourself to that next level, right? So when you're dreaming, it all comes into fruition, because the dream happens in the imagination. And as you impress that upon your subconscious mind and you keep doing it, guess what? Boom, boom. We done brought that thing into reality. So you have to keep going. You have to keep pressing. When somebody tells you no, okay, that's the outside result. Where you exist is inside. It's almost as if you have to have a firm balance between the fantasy and the reality at the same time. The fantasy is the inside, right? Because you think from the inside out. So fantasy is going to be the inside, and the reality is the outside. So if you're looking and you're like, this is not... Dr. Miles Monroe once said, if what you see is not what you saw, then what you're seeing is only temporary. Let me say that again. He said, if what you're seeing is not what you saw in your imagination, then what you're seeing on the outside is temporary. It's just there to test you. I like to see reality as like this. It's almost like a movie, right? It's like a glitch, and you have to be the glitch in your own system. It's almost like, okay, wait a minute. Let me think really quick. So in my inside, I told myself I'm going to have this. I can be, do, and have whatever I choose. Okay, I chose this. I've decided this. I'm on a mission to do this. And when the outside doesn't look like what the inside is, I'm looking at it like, I'm not crazy, so that's not it. Next. That's not it. Next. That's not what I saw. Next. Don't ever compromise. I remember there's a man called Abdullah. And Abdullah was the teacher of Neville Goddard. Abdullah taught Joseph Murphy. And he was their teacher. And what he did to Neville Goddard was from Barbados. And he wanted to go back home to Barbados. And, he was with Abdullah. And Abdullah was basically like, look, what is it that you want? And he was like, I want to go home. I want to go home with a first class ticket, right? First class ticket. So Abdullah was like, okay, imagine yourself, you're already there. You're already home. And at first Neville was like, what? How am I home? And the thing was it was like, you have to get in the practice. We talked about this when we talked about praxis, right? You have to get in the practice of being where you want to be, right? And so he's going and going and going, right? And he's like, okay, I'm in Barbados. So he starts imagining the trees, the temperature, the waters. What does it feel like? What does it look like in Barbados? Right? Because he's ready to go home. So he's imagining even though he's in America, right? Even though he's doing that. And guess what? Boom. He ended up getting a ticket to go home. Now, he said he wanted a first class ticket, right? So he goes and he knocks on Abdullah's door. He's like, boom, 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 boom. And he's like, Abdullah, guess what? And Abdullah's like, what's going on? And he's like, I got a ticket to Barbados. And Abdullah's like, okay, duh, of course. Because when you all understand the power of understanding what your mind can do, there's no surprises. It's just kind of like, okay, yeah, that's what you wanted, right? Like, oh, congratulations, you know what I mean? But it's like, we knew that. We were expecting that. We knew that was going to happen. We've already been here before, right? And so as he's getting excited, he's like, yeah, but the only thing is, it's not a first class ticket. And Abdullah was like, well, then, nope. And he was like, but that's what I wanted, the first class ticket. And he's like, Abdullah's like, no, you don't take that. That's not what your goal was. You said that you were going to, that's not what you imagined. You said that you were going to have a first class ticket to go to Barbados. So yeah, this is a ticket to Barbados, but this isn't a first class ticket that you wanted. And so he literally is like, yeah, but, and he slams the door on Neville. He slams the door on Neville. And he's like, man, I can't go. Like, this is the ticket that I've been waiting for. Anyways, what ends up happening is Neville goes there and to see the ticket. And they were like, oh, actually, we have a first class ticket available. Would you like it? And Neville was like, absolutely. So he ended up going back to Abdullah and saying, Abdullah, guess what? Like, the ticket changed and it's first class now and all these other things. And he's like, all right, go ahead and get on it. But the point is that there's two lessons in this. The first lesson is like, don't compromise on what your dreams and goals are just because the picture doesn't match. The picture has to match. The picture has to match that which you want. The picture, let me say that again. The picture has to match that which you want. So you don't fold. What does that mean? You don't compromise what it is that you want just because the outside result is saying otherwise. You want those traits. Right? You want those traits. Now, if it's like, oh, I want this person, like you get what you vibrate to, but at the same time, like, you can't infringe on the will of others. Right? And so when the universe is doing its work, right? Because I like to see the universe as a servant. Like, the universe is literally the genie to me. I feel like the universe, I'd say, hey, look, listen, this is what I want, right? I asked God for it, right? And I'm like, hey, God, well, I don't talk to God like that, but you know what I mean? It's like asking. What are you asking for? Hey, I want this. Okay, but then you have to act as if you already have it, right? And so that's a major part of the process that a lot of people mess up and they don't meet. Is they don't realize, oh my gosh, I have to act as though I already have this thing. And when you know that you have that thing, it's a whole different ball game, baby. So that's the first lesson. The first lesson is not to compromise. The second thing is, I love how Abdullah handled Neville. He slammed the door in his face. He's like, hey, that's not what you said you wanted. And so it's important to have that person next to you to remind you, like, hey, that's not it. That's not the picture that we imagined. That's not the picture that we were looking at together. That's not the picture that we said that we would have together. That's not